right, so the last time I saw you was at the Free Momia concert at BB King's on 42nd Street. What has your itinerary been like since that?
Oh man, so much has happened. Done a little bit of traveling. We actually tried to make some commitments to plant ourselves in the community a little harder. Sometimes if there's an option for me not to go somewhere, I just take the option to stay home. It's been a little bit difficult since I put the album out on July 14th. So, I'm moving back around again. But in the process of moving around, I'm learning a lot. And my assessment of the movement is changing. And I feel that my place in the movement is shifting as well. I feel, I went to Brazil and spent some time with the MST land occupation movement. A little bit, not too much, not as much as I would like to. Two other members of our organization spent 5 weeks with them. You build your own habitat, you become part of a cooperative working, environment. They grow their own food, they produce their own goods. They have, they occupy land from the government. Prior to going there, I was thinking about the movement, and I said, what is this? Really, what are we doing? What are our means of power? What's our leverage? And what's our end game? Because what do we realistically want from the system? If the system says tomorrow, all right, we're not killing black folks no more, we're done. Is the battle over? Is the war over? These are things that I'm looking at, and I'm looking at our narrative, and I'm looking at our place in the struggle from a perspective that's larger than just what America has tried to marginalize it as. Are we comrades to some of our international allies or not? And do they view themselves as allies to us truly? Because I'm now thinking about, okay, so how do we win? Really, what does a win look like? And I think it's time that we begin to really assess our power and really apply it to the right place. So power doesn't always have to be showing up to a police building to yell at a police chief that doesn't necessarily give a damn about what you're yelling about anyway, right? And if you take the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're spending on bail money nationwide, okay, let's take that money and let's divest that money from people getting locked up and see what happens if we invest that money into a different energy, So, because if we can't spend money on that, who's to say we can't spend money on this, whatever this other option is? So now I'm really just processing things, man. I'm really looking at this from the lens of how do we properly organize a real movement, and that's where I'm at with it, whether it be cultural or whatever.
Okay. Now, earlier you'd spoken about these revolutionary rappers being really into the same categories, these gangster rappers with these fanciful stories and tales that they spin. I don't wish for you to name any names, but I would like for you to elaborate on this one-on-one discussion on that particular topic.
So I feel, man, when I look back at August 9th, right, and I knew I would play a role, but I didn't know how large a role. And I feel like even as a rapper, a lot of my role had to be overcompensated because I did not see support for the movement coming from other rappers with bigger stages and bigger platforms than I had. I think a lot of MCs were so caught up on the hip-hop aspect, the music aspect of representing for the downtrodden people. You can go in the studio, you cut your records, you feel really good about the emotional outpour of making the record, but honestly, what's the record movement? It feels good for you, and it's cool to listen to, and it creates some form of positive energy in the universe. But for the movement and the liberation of us as a people, what are those 16 bars really shaping? You know what I'm saying? And we give these people a different type of pass than we give other people that make music that we deem as detrimental. But on a certain level, some of these brothers that make the music that we deem as detrimental are more radical than the rappers that have a radical message.
Individuals like David Banner, who had become exponentially more enlightened from the day that he initially came to the game. I remember doing a review of his album, in 2000? And he was on that crunkness, but also on that militant, but the militant was much more subtle. So, and he's out there speaking on and discussing these matters. At what point does discussing, in your opinion, become Hazell, and action become more important than simply appearing on TV shows and yelling at people who really aren't listening to what you're saying?
So somebody like Dave, for example, I'm friends with David Banner. I think we have a lot of similarities to some degree. If you listen to a lot of my earlier music, it was quality music, it was good stuff, but at the same time, I was yet to walk into this newer version of Knowledge Yourself, this more defined version of what being a revolutionary rap artist means. I was yet to discover that, and living through Ferguson gave me that. And even though at the time I used to do, I was a part of several social justice movements, but this right here has shaped me to such a degree that I now know that we have to have physical activity attached to the words we say. If we don't do that, then this is just falling on deaf ears. And yes, it's creating a cultural narrative. It's creating spaces for things to be discussed prior to being discussed. So you need a guy like David Banner. I mean, he's a movie star. He's a producer. He makes music. You need a David Banner in the position that he's at, but you also need the Tef Poes, and you need the Rebel Diaz's. You need these artists that are planted in the community that can concretely touch the community as well. And I think what we need to create a better module of is, how do we connect the David Banners that are the mainstream cultural shapers and the Rebel Diaz's? How do we build that bridge of communication between both? Because now I think that we're at a point where if we do want to consider this a movement, then even for the artists, we have to start forming some revolutionary principles. When you get on TV, this is the narrative that's going on in the streets. When you talk to this person, this is what the poor folks want you to talk to that person about. And I think that's where we have to move hip-hop to. I would actually love to see some type of artist convening, where we sit down, throw some things on the board, the guys that are the frontliners versus the guys that are the people behind the curtains, create a greater sense of solidarity between those two parties. I would love to see that.
Okay. Well, in closing, is there anything I may have neglected to ask you that you'd like for my readership to know?
Man, I just think that, so a year later, right, 365 days later, the movement has moved into a space where it's still here, it's still in existence on a certain level. So now we can step outside of ourselves, like you said, asking questions like, so what has changed since, how have you changed, or where have you been since then? And I think we have to use these stories as a bit of a progress report. And I also believe that we also have to develop some conversation around results and control the conversation around results, because here's what we don't want to do. We don't want to allow a system that has created 400 to 500 years of this garbage to suddenly say, okay, y'all resisted it for a year. What did you make? What came out of that? Because to me, I think that is a mechanism of viewing the movement from a very capitalistic lens. If it's not producing, then it's not valued, you know. I think that we're at a point now where we need to really do some political education on successful movements globally and really apply some of that context to what we're doing, similar to how the Black Panther Party did at a certain point, similar to how Dr. King started to do in 1968 when he pushed pause and he began to say, okay, let me analyze this. We unfortunately don't necessarily have the amount of time that those brothers and sisters had because they were in a different space with a different type of society. And I think that while we can't rush ourselves to the finish line, and I'm not saying that we're rushing, we should rush anything, but what I'm saying is we now know what this system is capable of in terms of destroying movements and killing off people that have been perceived to be leaders, and locking people up. The system doesn't necessarily have to get you by